Hey everyone, super excited. This is episode 6 of the True Life with Tom show. And I'm joined by a friend, an associate, an entrepreneur, none other than Jennifer Steward, who has been in the real estate space for a long time, has been a model in the past, as you probably can tell, and has one of the most beautiful minds of anyone that I know on earth. So without going any further, Jennifer, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you, and let's get to it.
Tom, thank you so much for that very warm and generous introduction. Just want to say that we're super ready for spring here in Texas. It's been a kind of a long, cold, gray winter. And some of the ways that I've been able to bust some of that doldrum and ennui is just making sure that I exercise, even with a broken ankle. And then opening up my New Testament to the red letters. I know that you and I can get very real, Tom, and there's a lot about the culture around Christianity that I find very oppressive and the opposite of Christ's message. But if you really just focus on the red letters, you can really find a lot of freedom and peace. And so if anyone's dealing with that, if they're in a winter location and for whatever reason they're not free to travel to a sunny location, for me, that's a broken ankle. You have to find a place in your mind that you can go to where you can still retain that same kind of freedom and peace that you could where you have the external stimulation that maybe supports that a little better in a warmer beach location.
Wow. Yeah. So what you said, where you're in Texas, what part of Texas are you in?
Yeah, I'm an hour north of Dallas, just south of the Oklahoma border. And it's much colder here than people in other parts of the country realize. It's been in the teens all this week and ice and snow, and that's becoming more and more the norm. As whether I don't know if climate change is real or not, I think you'd need a lot of long-term data, but let's assume that it is. In my lifetime, it's gotten a lot colder around here in wintertime. And it makes it harder to leave because someone has to man your properties and keep the pipes from bursting, right? I know if we have any landlords listening, they know exactly what that's like.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Now, one of the things that has kind of captured my attention and the attention of other people is just the messaging and the way you leverage social media. So tell me a little bit, what was your motivation behind the unique way in which you basically present your whole persona to America?
Well, I
What
would
kind of brought
say,
you?
to get a little bit nerdy, in the animal kingdom, there's something called supranormal stimulus. And let's say, for example, you take this certain kind of goose, because I had to take animal communications in college. And if you take this goose, and each goose has a pattern on the eggs that represents their species and their children, right? So if you take a fake egg that looks just like their egg and you put it near their nest and it's bigger and has more spots, right? But it's still consistent with what they know, they call that supernormal stimulus, where it then puts them into what's called a fixed action pattern, where then they pay more attention to these exaggerated forms of what they know, right? And then they kind of bring that into their nest. And so as human beings, we have certain things that we pay attention to: fertility, threats, ability to solve problems. That's what we look for in our leaders. And so if you hit on all those points, you really get people's attention because everybody has problems. And we all, if we could, we want someone else to solve those problems for us. That's why a lot of women go for the rich husband, which I did not do. As you've pointed out, right? I don't need someone to solve my problems most of the time. I solve my own problems. And so I put that out there. Hey, here's how I've solved this problem. And hey, the good Lord just so happened to grace me with a certain appearance that I then hone through, exercising a lot and nutrition and makeup, you name it, right? Even though this is a natural look, this is a lot of makeup to achieve what looks like a fresh, healthy, natural look. And so really it comes down to what's going to get people's attention so that I can then get a message out there that helps them help themselves in terms of solving their problem and make a profit for myself and for my family, where it's a win-win for everybody. But you can't present a win-win if nobody's paying attention to you. I mean, think about homeless people in the street. They're just yelling and talking and maybe holding up a sign, but nobody's paying attention. So And what's the assumption there? The assumption is, well, that person can't help me with my problems. They can't even help themselves with their own problems. So leaders have to show that, number one, they can solve not only their problems, but your problems. But first, you have to get their attention. And although some people may disagree with the way that I get attention, that is not my concern, because I am not destined to just be silent and go on my way, because there's no ROI on that. There's a much higher ROI to draw that attention to yourself. Even though I'm an extreme introvert, I had a long conversation with my son this morning about how he wants to go back to in-person public high school because he wants to be around people. And we've been homeschooling for years. And he said, Mom, I'm not like you. I can't just go to the forest or the mountains or the beach and be in complete solitude and be your happiest, best self. He's like, I see you in the forest and the mountains and on the beach. That's your happiest, best self. But that's not me. I need more interaction. I am completely content, Tom, by myself in nature, even among large predators, even with exposure, hunger. I mean, we were in those California mountains for months, as you know, with no cell phone service most of the time and having to carry a large 1-ounce slug. I kept a 38 on my hip in case we came across people, and then my spouse carried the 1-ounce slug in case we came across predators. That's my preferred way to live.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm really in society just to help others and make money. And then I'm ready to go back to nature where I can be my true and free self.
Now, how old's your son?
I have a 14-year-old and a 9-year-old.
Okay. Well, 14 is a very, very key point.
Yes.
And, obviously puberty and girls and things and
for sure.
Those are all important, and I can understand that. And from everything, and for those of you, obviously listeners, you don't know, tell me how long you were out on vacation this past summer.
Well, over a 12-month period, so let's say from September 2023 to October 2024, we were on a family road trip for about 5 months out of those 12 months. And the only reason we came home was because we had house sitters. And they can't just watch our place indefinitely. I mean, that's kind of an imposition. But otherwise, I think we could have stayed out there indefinitely. And then also, we wanted to come home for the holidays and give the kids that normative experience. So we fled into town, like sliding into third base 2 hours before Halloween, chose old costumes from yesteryear, because we accumulated quite a few after so many years, threw one on, went trick-or-treating, went to a Halloween party. And our friends were like, I can't believe you could come up that long road trip and then just go trick-or-treating and go to a Halloween party. And I'm like, well, that's what we came home to do. And then Thanksgiving and Christmas, New Year's. And then I broke my ankle right after New Year's. And so the goal was to get back to traveling in January. But now I've got this long recovery ahead of me with physical therapy and healing that ankle. So that's going to be a journey of its own, Tom. That's a spiritual journey for me. You and I have talked about that. And I've never injured myself like that before. And so this is a new experience. But yeah, we were on the road for going from national park to national park and landed in the redwoods for quite some time, the coastal redwoods. And I cried whenever it was time to come home. I really didn't want to come home. I wanted to stay there forever. But California is a messed up place in terms of their government. So I wasn't able to stay because you can't get insurance on Airbnb properties really out there. So, I mean, that's the only way we were going to buy would have been, we talked to 17 different brokers and only one of them could get us an insurance line, and it was $17,000 a year, which killed the deal. I mean, I was already buying it for a good price.
Yeah.
There's
$1,000
no
a month, crazy. $1,200 a month.
Yeah,
Wow.
17,000 a year. It's more like 1,500 a month.
Yeah, 15. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, there was just no way to make the numbers work. And, that property is still for sale. So maybe the seller will come to Jesus and realize that no one can get it insured, and he's going to have to come down on
And that's another thing. So are you saying that the seller doesn't have insurance right now, or he does at that high rate?
Insurance because he's grandfathered in. But I can't get his policy. I even tried to pick it up subject to. He didn't want to do that. So he wants to sell it outright for cash as an old man. And we were doing seller finance, but it had a 3-year balloon. And I didn't want to risk facing a 3-year balloon and not being able to get insurance in 3 years of any kind. Really depends on which way the wind blows politically out there. And I'm not going to hold my breath. It's going to blow in the right direction. So we really can't feasibly live out there. So we have to just kind of visit, right? Yeah. So we're in Texas for now.
Nice.
Texas is a great place for business purposes.
Yeah. I know some people down there. I don't know if you know Bryce McKinley, but he's in Dallas. He's been doing virtual wholesaling for, 15 years.
That's great. That's really ahead of his time. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, really, really, that's another thing too that I want to mention. We talked a little bit about our faith. And one of the things that I can tell you is that when I'm in joy and gratitude, I attract some of the most amazing human beings.
You're right.
When I'm in anger, the worms get in.
Interesting. Yeah.
So like if I'm not in a great frame of mind today, I may attract somebody that wants to see if I can help them or they want to do business with me. And what ends up happening, or has happened more than once, is we get on a call and I'm like, oh, this doesn't feel good. Right.
Smart.
And so you and I talk about this all the time. Energy is everything.
It is.
And
that's why meditation is important. You got to get yourself in that right state of mind.
Right. And what have you found helps you stay in joy and gratitude? I think you've got it figured out. I'm inspired by you, Jennifer. You're probably almost 20 years younger than me. You inspire me. And so what keeps you in the zone other than the nature?
Right. Because like I said, that's not always available if it's wintertime and your ankle is broken. So that's what I mean. This has been a spiritual journey. It's forced me to look at internal resources instead of leaning on external resources to find that joy and that peace. And I will say that, like you said, gratitude. So whenever I did break my ankle, I was extremely angry, and I channeled that anger into productivity. Instead of feeling sorry for myself from bed, I joined Com Loan so that I could do commercial loans. And I hit that hard. And then I had a friend put me on his podcast, and I got a lot of new clients in a short period of time. And I hit that hard. And I made sure that, my kids had everything that they needed and that their dad could take care of them while I am rather incapacitated. And I just focused on work 100%. So I channeled my anger to give me a greater sense of security, because we do live in a physical world. And you've seen me post about this, is that we have very real 3-dimensional, 4th-dimensional needs that need to be addressed. However, beyond that, beyond food, nutrition, shelter, clothing, a social interaction that's meaningful to you, right? Beyond that, all of our needs and wants are spiritual. There's no way a nice car is going to solve how I really feel about myself. Getting new things, that's not going to really move the needle. In fact, man, I've had everything: nice cars, perfect body in my youth, and all the best clothes, and all the best grades, and all the money. Do you know what that did? It made people hate me. You think it makes people line up to love you and kiss your ass and all this stuff? No. That no one cares about you having that stuff. They care about them having that stuff. And whenever I realized it wasn't going to give me the validation, the friendship, and the love, let's be honest, the love that I was looking for, and I'm not talking about romantic love. I'm talking about sharing my inner space with someone else's inner space and having each other's backs, really, truly caring about each other and having those long conversations that nobody gives a shit about, really, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's no what's in it for me, just sharing your inner experience with the other person who really cares about your inner experience and vice versa. That's what I thought that stuff was going to bring me. And guess what? It did not. Everybody who ever loved me, truly loved me when I had nothing, when I was overweight, when I was poor, when I was sick with autoimmune. They loved me then, and they loved me whenever I had a perfect body and nice cars and a big bank account and everything's going great and I'm going around the country speaking at all these events. But guess what? It's the same people in both spots, right? So why did I waste all my money on all this stuff? Why did I waste all my time on trying to canoodle with the right people. It was all bullshit, Tom. It was all a total waste. The only thing that ever really moved the needle was, in terms of money, putting things into investments that then gave me the free time to help others and help myself. Truly help myself. Exercise, eat right, genuinely connect with people who do care about you. Getting out in the community, getting out of your own head. It's like Jordan Peterson says, the more you think about yourself, the more miserable you are.
True. Yes, yes. And to that point, first of all, I love Jordan and I listen to him all the time. Another one of my favorites, another one is Simon Sinek.
Yeah.
Sinek, he's fantastic. One of the things, and I think it was him, or it doesn't matter who I'm quoting, but when we're communicating with other people, I'm really focused on these three things, these now. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary?
That's right.
So I have decided, as of today, I still had a little relapse, but I'm not going to react to any more social media posts about human beings that I don't know that may be in charge of America. Right?
Good for you.
So and that's another thing too, is that when you're in fear or reaction mode or one of those modes, or you're being stolen from purpose. Your divine purpose cannot shine when you're reacting emotionally to words or deeds for that matter. Am I right?
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, it's much harder to not respond to deeds than it is words, for sure.
Right. And so I'm working very diligently on improving my daily actions. I am becoming list man. I am list.
That's important.
So what I have on here, I got to find out some information.
List too.
Yeah, exactly. And then I'm starting to journal. I haven't really been consistent, but for anyone out there, journaling is a way to quiet your mind and capture some of what you've experienced for two reasons. First of all, it's very cathartic, healthy, refreshing to get it down on paper. But the best part, this is where the magic is, when you go back and read what you wrote a week ago, a month ago, 10 years ago. I'll give you a quick story. My brother-in-law has been journaling for 30.
Wow. I started in 96, Tom. 96.
Cool. He can go back into a journal because he has them all lined up. He can go back into a journal and tell you what he did on February 21st, 2001.
That's great. No, that's super powerful. I don't ever go back and read mine, but I did start a journal. It was December of 96. I was in the 6th grade and my period started like 3 months later. So I even got to capture that beginning part of becoming a woman. And there was a long period where I didn't journal, Tom, because I was in college and I was super, super busy. And I'm talking about college in my late 20s as a mother with one on the way and a wife. And then I started journaling again, and then I kind of stopped. So I was more consistent in my youth, but I at least do have this pattern and this experience. And honestly, sometimes not saying something is saying something. It's saying that this chronic journaler was so busy that they were not journaling. I have not journaled since I broke my ankle because I don't know if I'd like what I'd have to say. I haven't called any relatives. Like if I feel like I don't have something to give, I don't show up. Does that make sense? Like when I know I have nothing to give,
in the proverbial tank? You mean no energy in the tank? Okay.
Well, what I mean by nothing to give is nothing good to give. I feel like a needy taker. And yes, life is a give and take. But what I need right now, I know I can only give to myself. And that is the nutrition and the time to let my ankle heal. There's nothing anyone else can give me other than the boot that I'm wearing, my cast boot. There's really nothing that anyone else can give me that is going to truly give me what I need. And I don't have much to bring to them. So that's why I haven't been journaling, because I don't want to just sit there and complain, because then I feel like that's ruminating, right? So then I could choose to do a gratitude journal instead. But sometimes that feels a little bit forced and a little bit cheesy. And so I'm like, you know what? Let me just work. And I'll journal when I get to a slightly better place. So I'd like your thoughts on that, Tom.
Well, what I was going to say is that what first resonated with me is two things. First of all, one of my favorite lines from a song is, even when you choose not to decide, you have still made a choice.
Yeah, that's true.
So what happens is a lot of us are trying to meddle and influence and maybe micromanage different situations in our lives. And sometime when we come to the journal and we write down all this stuff that's going on, we need to take a pause for a second and say, what are my results when I behave this way?
Yes, you're right.
What results am I getting when I'm
You're right.
constantly picking and poking? Because the universe is perfect. God has created this perfect experience for all of us. And there's like 8 billion simulations going on at the
That's
same
right.
time.
All the different realities. Yeah.
Exactly. So getting back to what you said earlier, journaling is for you to give to you.
Right.
What I would say is not take a break from it, but temper yourself. Get your complaints out, get your gratitude out, and now you've released all of it. So now you have the new fresh eyes to go into your next day.
You know what? You're right. I probably should have done that instead of just kind of bottling it up, and just keeping it on the inside. And I have a lot more, you can't see it on camera, but I have a lot more white and gray hair than I did before this journey started. And I know that whenever I meditate regularly, now this is not, I don't know what explains this, but whenever I meditate a lot, my gray hair goes down by 75%. I'm not saying that the gray hair goes away completely, but it goes away 75%. And my hairdresser would even joke, because I don't get my hair colored anymore, but I used to. And she'd go, I can tell you haven't been meditating this month because you have a lot of gray hair.
Well, speak to that. Speak to that. Tell me what meditation has done for you personally and professionally.
Well, I have a staff of 212 people all around the world. So if you have a bad moment and you let it out and you say the wrong thing to people who rely on you, either a client or staff, you really affect their day. You affect their livelihood. I don't think enough quote unquote bosses think about that. Like, how many people have quit a job because of a bad boss? Probably all of us. And before I was more enlightened, I mean, quotations around enlightened, because I know it's a joke and it's a spectrum. We can never be fully enlightened. But let's just say when I was less enlightened, I had one of my staff say, Jen, I'm really suffering from depression and anxiety. And then I had another staff member say, hey, Jennifer, I'm really suffering from depression and anxiety. And I was like, I started to see a pattern how my management style, which is really horrible to think about, was really affecting these people in such a negative way. And I thought, well, what the heck am I doing? Because here's the thing, Tom, nobody sets out to be an asshole. Nobody sets out to ruin other people's day unless they're a bully or a sadist. And I'd like to think I'm neither one. If for no other reason, it's not profitable. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. It isn't. But then again, there's some awful people who do just fine being those things.
I guess so. But I actually really do care about people. God help me, even though I am an extreme introvert. That may partly be why, because I feel all the feelings of people around me and I take that in, and I don't always want to manage other people's feelings. And so anyhow, so here I have the staff telling me that they have depression and anxiety and they're needing to go on medication. And I'm feeling like I'm just this massive POS. And so my friend Scott, who has been a boss since 1984, he's like, Jen, I used to have the same problem. I used to have a lot of turnover, and I went to therapy and I realized that I was treating them like an equal, because we want to be treated like equals. We treat people how we want to be treated, and I was treating them like an equal. Well, why can't you figure this out? I figured it out. I figured out everything on my own. No one helped me. So what's your problem? Get to work, right? But that's not, they don't work for you because that's how they are. They work for you because not everyone is cut for being self-led. I know that sounds like fascist to say.
Not at all.
You try being
Not
a
at all.
boss, you realize quickly most people do not want to think for themselves. And so I ran my staff like I would run myself, and they had depression and anxiety. And I hate to say it, but this friend of mine taught me that his therapist was like, you need to treat them like children. Like children? I need to treat adults like children. Really? How pathetic is that? Well, that's because I treated my own inner child like it was pathetic. I never embraced my own inner child because I was never allowed to be a child. At 5 years old, I was running my house, right? So it's totally separate, storyline there. So how can I honor the children and others whenever I was never a child myself?
Okay.
And so in meditation, I realized that these people are coming to me for leadership. And I wasn't acting like a leader. I was acting like a butt.
Right.
Because I was treating them the way I would want to be treated. And that is, self-sufficient, self-starting, not being told what to do. That's not what they wanted. And so meditation helps me at its core, Tom. All that being said, if I had to put it in 2 sentences, meditation helps me feel the feelings that I don't want to feel. And the feelings
in a safe place, in a safe space.
Place.
Right.
And by feeling the feelings that I don't want to feel or realize that they're even there, I'm able to see where the true need is. And this is going to be weird. One time I was meditating and I thought I was mad at somebody, and I was like going to bed all huffy and puffy because I like to meditate laying flat in my bed. And I was like, this MFer, blah, blah, blah. And I get to meditating, and then I start crying about my mother, who's been dead, at this point for 15 years yesterday. But this was maybe, 5 years ago. Like, why am I crying about my mother who's been dead for 10 years? Well, I was having a moment pop up where I needed to grieve that. And that was the real feeling that was going on. But instead, I was taking it as, superficially as this jerk in my life. Who cares? It's just another jerk. There's dozens that we all deal with every day. Why did that bother me? And it wasn't that. It was the fact that I was having this piece of an ungrieved moment. There are some things, some losses that are so big, you will have to grieve in pieces your entire life. Now, of course, I'm 40, so I don't know what that looks like at 80. But in my life so far, there are things you will have to grieve in small pieces for the rest of your life.
And that's the only thing we can't control as human beings is the loss of life. And we all, celebrate their life. They're in a better place. Well, that all sounds good, but their physical void impacts our soul. And that's the gap in some of our lives is some people lose child's especially worse, but somebody loses a sibling or a parent and just can't regroup because they're such an integral part of their existence.
Exactly.
Right? And so, my mother is 82 years old. And when we talk about her mom, it was like she was here yesterday. And my grandmother died in 1979.
Wow.
When I was 13. And I have vivid memories of her. Unlike a lot of grandmothers, she was more of a boy's grandmother than a girl's grandmother. She didn't do the tea sets and that kind of thing. She was watch the Dolphins with me because she was from Miami. We watched football. We watched baseball. We would stay a week at a time in the summer in Ocean City, Maryland, right on the beach. And so it was just a wonderful experience. And, I miss her dearly. But when people pass away and I see it on Facebook, hey, keep me in your prayers, so-and-so died. I never, ever, ever say my condolences. I say, I'm sending you prayers of peace and comfort in this difficult time.
Great.
And then one of my phrases is, time and love will ease the pain while the void remains.
That's great.
And I've been looking forward to this day, this moment for weeks now, because we talked about it weeks ago, but you're such a unique person. And that's what draws me to you is that you're smart and you know all your superpowers and you use them. And those people who didn't respond to you well back in the day, That's jealousy. And jealousy is still one of those things that are very prevalent because when we look at ourselves in the mirror, we feel inadequate. Am I right?
Yeah, I get jealous too. And I didn't even realize that about myself. And that's probably one of the feelings that I try to suppress the most is jealousy, because I feel like it's so undignified and so beneath me, and also ignorant, because if you are jealous of someone, you're not close enough to see that what the real story is. Because there have been people I was jealous of, and then circumstances brought us into each other's sphere, sometimes in intimate ways. And I don't mean physically intimate, I mean, intellectually intimate. And I had a moment with them alone. I was at this conference and nobody showed up except for the speakers. And I ended up in a hotel room with a young lady who I was jealous of because she was much further along than me and probably, markedly smarter too. And I thought, man, I wish I was like her, plus she was kind and more well-liked. And I just thought, I'm jealous of that because I'm just not as far along, and people seem to like her more. Just being honest. And then it turned out that, just as always is the case, always, my jealousy was misplaced. She had a life that is good for her, but I don't want her life. Just same way she doesn't want my life. You know what I mean? Like, when you really get down to what people's day-to-day life looks like, you don't want that, because subconsciously you've created your day-to-day life to look how you actually want it to look for the most part. I think especially by the time you're my age, usually. Now that's going to change as you age, but and she'd had hardships that I had not had. Luckily, she had the IQ to overcome them. And so I realized that, boy, I'm not jealous of her. I am in admiration and respect of this person. And so that's just one example of the many times in my life whenever I felt like I was jealous of somebody. Or this lady who, I met this guy same time she did. I turned him down. She ended up marrying him. He was totally beyond the pale rich. And then I went to her house and she was, venting to me about her life with this guy that I could have been with. And he had her followed professionally to make sure that she was being faithful, like a professional dick, a
Private investigator.
Yeah, had been following her while he himself was cheating. And he was 20 years her senior. But here she is living in this castle, married to this guy. And here I am living in this apartment, which was a nice apartment complex, but still, it was a luxury apartment complex, but it was an apartment. And we were the same age. We were in our, early to mid 20s. And she was living in a castle with this guy. And I thought, man, I was a fool to let this guy go. No, something told me I was not going to be an autonomous figure in that situation. I would have lost it if someone had put a dick on me and then was cheating. Right. It wouldn't have been good at all.
The private dick. You mean the investigator. Right. Got it. Just want to be clear for the people who missed that.
Having fun at the audience's expense. Forgive me.
That's it. This time is ours and theirs, But the thing that is so exciting for me, I started the podcast because Jimmy, I can't remember, it's Jimmy or Josh is his name, but he goes into these restaurants and he says, hey, how much for the burger? And they bring it out and they're like, it's $16. And he's like, can I get 50 of them? Right. And then he goes and takes them to a homeless encampment.
That's awesome.
And gives them all out. So what I really like to do, and I've created a nonprofit, it's called People Giving a Hand Up. What I want to do is I want to take it beyond that. As we grow the audience, as we grow sales, as we sell merch, whatever we do to bring in money, I would like to help people with food, clothing, housing, healthcare, and online resources to maybe teach them how to live a better life, if that's what they want. But I want to do more than just a meal. Now, the meal is important and it's beautiful, and I'm grateful that people are out there doing great things for people, right? I'm glad that he can go into a store and drop $900 and then go feed 50 people. I love that.
I'm just hearing about it. Burger sounds great.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And sometimes it's burgers, sometimes it's pizza, sometimes it's stew, but it's always good food. So I feel there's a servant in you. How did you transition to being concerned and jealous and all of these things you were when you were younger to become a servant to others? Well, where did that transition happen and how?
I would say just getting my butt kicked by life. I feel like we are put here on this earth to both receive and share God's love. And to me, God's love comes through the form of reducing the suffering of those you see right in front of you, and conversely, increasing the joy. And so I'm an opportunistic charity person. So whenever I was staying in California, I was attending this church that was very welcoming to the LGBTQ community. And so to see these disaffected and marginalized youth come in and need love. I mean, even out there, that's still a marginalized community. In Texas, they don't even have those types of churches really around here unless you're, Oak Lawn in Dallas or something like that. And there was this homeless guy who was sitting at the table with us, and he was wearing a superhero mask. And everybody else at the church wouldn't go and sit by him. And that's not a judgment on them, right? So my bandwidth is different whenever I'm out in those beautiful places. I may not have that bandwidth in my work stations and here in Texas in work mode. But out there, my bandwidth is pretty big because I'm in my happy place, right? So I have the bandwidth to go and sit by this guy who's clearly mentally unwell. And that's unpredictable and it's scary. I mean, it's scary. People who are truly mentally unwell like that are genuinely scary because they're unpredictable. But I have this gift, if I have any at all, and that is to read people around me. Now, famous last words. I mean, it doesn't mean I don't make mistakes. But I just felt like this guy, as unstable as he was, just needed a meal and to be acknowledged as a human being. So even though he's wearing this superhero mask, sitting down at this table, and I said, "Hello, my name's Jennifer Steward. How are you? Good morning." And he said, "Hi, my name is Scott. And let me just tell you something. I like you. You're a direct person who takes charge and actually cares about people." So it was like he just read me like that. He said,
Now, what did you do? What was your instant reaction?
I felt like it was some sort of celestial or divine being who had come down in the form of this person to test,
Okay. Okay.
to test, are we going to be like Christ or are we going to be in our flesh? And then he switched back into his flesh insanity, the crazy person he was unfortunately manifested in probably most of the time. And he told my son he didn't know what he wanted to go get from the food table yet because he hadn't figured out which food was going to help him levitate. And there were beans on the table, and my 9-year-old son, Kyle, said, "Well, if you're looking to levitate, you might want to go for the beans, so
Yeah.
that you can have liftoff."
Yes. Yes. I'm already with you. I knew where you were going with that.
So children don't discriminate against mental health status, race, gender. Children just see straight
Energy.
Yeah.
Energy and conversation and the energy exchange. One of the things I want to tell you, Jennifer, and I don't know if you realized it, but when you met the superhero, that moment was confirmation for the light you shine. Do you know that? That was God telling you and validating you, because sometimes you want to be validated. God showed up to tell you, you are who you are in this moment, and it mattered to that gentleman.
Thank you. Well, we all sat down and we had a dinner, and he said a lot of crazy things that didn't make sense. Typical for schizophrenia, a lot of word salad, and we just politely acknowledged and tried to follow. It was very difficult to follow schizophrenic word salad. And, my degree's in psychology, so I understood what was going on there. And I said, "Well, Scott, after he ate, he wanted to leave quickly because they can tell that people are uncomfortable around them. And other people once people saw me go and sit with him, then other people joined as well, even though I was just a guest at the church, right? They saw, well, this, Jennifer is okay with this guy, and she's brought her children around this guy. By the way, since it was a gay church, we were the only people there with kids, not a big youth program in a gay church.
Right.
So
Yeah, and I'm not going to get too much into this. I'm going to just leave my personal feelings alone on in this moment in time. But like you said, we all need to be loved. We all want to be
Yes.
validated. We all want to feel special and important. One of the reasons I'm here is that you do that to me. You make me feel special and important every time we communicate. And you said one thing that you said to me that really, really resonated with, and one of the reasons I was super excited about today, you said you were honored to join me.
Yes,
And
that's true.
I sometimes don't see my light and I don't see it shine. And I don't know if I'm validated, right? I'm not asking for it. I'm just saying sometimes I don't know.
Right.
And so if I look at it, that statement, for you to mean that to me, I must mean something significant back to you. Hence, we're here.
That's
So
right.
I have a really, really important question. How long or when did you really realize how much of an impact do you have on other people in your daily space? When did you realize you became an influencer or what I like to call a chosen one? When did that take place?
Can make a decent story. I was doing acquisitions for mobile home parks in Oklahoma for a job, right? I mean, someone had hired me to find these mobile home parks and get them under contract for them.
Uh-huh.
And that's what I like to do. That's what I'm good at is finding and funding deals. And so I did. I was having a lot of conversations with people in Oklahoma and I was finding some success getting these properties under contract. And I posted on Facebook that that's what I was doing. And then within that next week, whenever I was calling before, nobody else was calling these people. But after I'd made that post, all of a sudden, all these mobile home park owners were saying, "Oh my gosh, all of a sudden we're getting all these calls and I don't understand why and what's going on." And I told my boss at the time, I don't mind saying who it was. It was Tom Barry. And he's like, "Jen, when you post, people listen. They may not always react." I said, "Man, I thought I was just a fat cold caller in the middle of nowhere, Texas. I didn't realize I had any kind of gravitas or influence or power." So that was a weird moment for me where I realized that at that point people had considered me an expert, and all of a sudden all these people are calling and doing the same thing. And even my lawyer lately, I was doing particularly well in commercial loans. Again, that was also with Tom Barry. And I had brokered a loan that then Tom Barry and his number one, Natalie, had funded, and it was a lot of money. And my lawyer said, "Don't tell anybody, Jennifer. You're going to get a lot of copycats." And sure enough, I found a way to monetize that. So I joined ComLoan, which is where you can bring people into the same industry.
Oh,
And then
okay.
I had a lot of people have a lot of interest in joining me at ComLoan. So you can capitalize on that copycat activity. But and I don't even want to call it copycatting because that's kind of a negative term. I'd say emulation, leadership, whatever you want to call it. And so that was a weird moment for me, Tom, because I had never felt like anyone cared anything about me other than my appearance. And I know I'm 40 now, but like at one time I felt like that's all the world valued
Right.
about me was my appearance because that's all anyone ever said was, "Oh, you're so pretty," or "Oh, you're so pretty." And if they mentioned I was smart, it was like it was a detracting thing. It's kind of like saying, "Oh, well, you're really pretty, but you need to have that growth on your neck removed." Like it was like my perceived intelligence was treated almost like this unsightly bulge
Right.
that was undesirable, right? So that was a nice shift in my life to where all of a sudden I was valuable for what was between my ears. And that was really pivotal for my self esteem.
Well, I have met thousands of people through social media, through traveling to 5 countries and 33 states in my lifetime. And of all the people I've ever met, you're the one of the most powerful and intelligent women I know. And I am super excited to be in your circle. And as we kind of wrap things up here, I want to just talk about you for just a second. Just so everyone knows, Jennifer is a commercial loan broker. So if you want to buy multifamily properties or commercial assets, Jennifer's information is going to be in the description. I can add your number, any links you want me to use, let me know. Okay, Jennifer?
Thank you.
And also, if you have a business, she focuses on real estate business, and she mentioned her call center with over 200 reps. Virtual assistants can help you run your business. And Jennifer is a great leader, a great teacher, a great mentor. We call her the cold calling queen, because as you can tell with Jennifer's intelligence and conversation and articulation, that's what she takes into a phone conversation with a stranger, and is very, very thorough and dialed in and that type of thing. Is there anything else, Jennifer, that you really want to tell us a little about you as an entrepreneur and getting a hold of you and what you bring to the table with your gifts and talents?
Tom, thank you for that opportunity. And thank you for mentioning that you felt like I was one of the most powerful women that you had experienced. And you asked me, kind of before the podcast episode, what made me like that? And it was basically because there was no ROI on being diminutive, on not believing in yourself and not pushing. I'm a perfectionist by fault. And so I feel like there's a certain way that my life needs to look. It almost comes from a rigidness. Like, this is how my life is going to look. This is how the people around me are going to treat me. This is how I'm going to look. And anything that varies from that vision, I beat out of existence, right? If it won't go away on its own, I beat it till it does, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And one of the things that I hear from you sometimes is, on one hand, you're super powerful, and on the other hand, you're self-deprecating. So, and one moment I'm like, I'm hot, I say good things, come do business with me, I'm a humble servant. And that's what has really brought me to your experience, is that all of your superpowers, and I keep using those, and I use the word chosen one. I believe I'm a chosen one. A chosen one is someone who believes they're destined for something absolutely amazing, but they haven't figured it out yet, or they have. Okay? I've figured it out. I know what my divine purpose is. My execution's been a little weak, right? So do you know what your divine purpose is?
Well, gosh, that is such a big question. If my instinct tells me that my divine purpose, if there is one, I know there is, but it's to make sure that my children are happy, healthy, and don't have to endure the traumas of neglect and violence, poverty, and all of those things that happen whenever we live an unenlightened life. So everything else that goes around that is superfluous compared to, raising these happy, healthy children in a world where, I don't feel like we're always set up to be able to provide that for our children. And so I feel like I was here to be a healer to those who maybe are invisible or are powerless. I don't always know what that looks like on a day to day. Like I said, it may be encountering someone homeless at church. It may be getting someone a job in my agency. It may be helping a client build his rental portfolio with my cold callers. It may be making sure a big multifamily gets pushed through. So many opportunities come through to do this. And I feel like divine purpose is to make sure that anyone who encounters you leaves much, much better off. And I don't always feel like I want to say things like, like you said earlier, I'm honored to meet with you. I find that honesty is important, but it needs to come from a place of gratitude. It needs to come from a place of, as you say, high vibrational authenticity.
Right.
So, like I said on a podcast the other day, instead of telling a lady, hey, you need to shave your mustache, it's gotten a little long there, honey. That's not polite. Instead of saying, hey, how have you been doing lately? I know I've been struggling with some self-care. How are you doing on that front? You know what I mean? Make people feel seen and cared about. Don't just hit them over the head with bullying them or making fun of the manifestations of their lack of self-care. Instead, do a higher vibrational activity of saying, how can I support your self-care that may eventually result in them realizing, oh, hey, I've got a mustache and I need to shave it. But you see what I mean? How most
Yeah.
people just focus on that one little thing and they're jerks and then, or they judge or whatever, but instead dig deep. Or even like, in our network, Tom, sometimes our friends fall off and we find out they're financial frauds. And do you notice how quickly all these people just throw them under the bus, people that were their best friend, etc. But nobody ever asks the question, hey man, or sometimes a lady, hey, what was the process that got you in that position? What happened? Were you just not keeping your books? Did your expenses run away? So people aren't kind. And then, of course, you don't want to be kind if they were fraudulent with your money,
Right.
obviously. But I've just noticed so many people who were put on pedestals on our network. And then as soon as they do anything that, they run into trouble, they just have henpecking party and all their friends turn against them, turn into enemies. And I don't want to be that person. I never want to be that person. I want to be the person that says, hey, how'd this happen? How can you roll it back? And so that's what I want to do. I don't want to be just another hen in the henpecking party. I want to be the person who goes into the person who's in the center of the henpecking party, even if they deserve it, and pull them out and say, hey, how do we rehabilitate this?
Right. Right. And one of the things I want to share with you is that something I heard recently is that when it comes to success, discipline, consistency, and purpose are very powerful. What I would say to you and to anyone out there who goes through these struggles in life and business is you need to understand why you get up in the morning, why
Yes.
you do what you do. And see here, I can tell you the definition of my divine purpose, but
Yeah,
I
tell me.
need more nurturing to really bring it out, because sometimes I get stuck in my own inner value. Okay, I'm not going to use a negative term. I just get stuck in my inner value.
Right.
My divine purpose is to elevate, motivate, and educate people in my unique way as I help them on their journey.
That's great.
And I figured that one out 13. When I'm in service to others, I'm in my highest vibration and awareness. When I step into my mind or my shortcomings, I am serving no one, least of
True.
all myself.
That really is so true, Tom.
So I remember when pandemic 2020 started, because it was all planned. We all know that now. Fauci's evil. I'm going to leave
We
that.
knew it then, but nobody believed us,
Oh
right?
yeah. Well, we both
I lost
knew.
a lot of friends over that.
Yeah,
I
I
was like,
lost friends, Facebook
and
friends,
then,
like, I can't
it's
believe you're
cool.
not wearing a mask. I can't believe you're not vaccinating. I can't believe,
I
all these
know.
things. But
I lost a lot of old friends over that. That was crazy.
this is the exciting part of my giving place. So I had closed a deal in March. I made about $12,000 in March of 2020. And so I was in a good mood. I was in a good frame of mind. April started rolling around, all these shutdowns are happening. I'm like, what is going on here? I'm doing dishes. I'm looking out the window and there's no cars going by. I'm going,
I
this is
know. Yeah,
nuts.
that
This
is
is
crazy.
nuts. And I'm losing it a little bit. And I just couldn't get back into the frame of working. I just couldn't get back there at all. I kept trying to get back to work and I couldn't do it. And so I had this idea. There's a local group, got about 30,000 members. I posted and said, hey, does anyone want dinner tonight? Pizza and wings. It's on me. I just wanted to do something giving, right? Nobody responded to the post. The next day for lunch, I posted it again. Hey, if anyone wants pizza and wings, I'm buying. I'll have it delivered to your house. 2 single parents in one of the roughest neighborhoods in our town, rougher, neighborhoods in our town took me up on it, and they're both single parents. One of the young man who took me up on it messaged me back and said how much it meant to his autistic daughter to have her chicken wings, and she hadn't had them
Oh,
in a while, right? So what's exploding, right? Well, I'm inspired now, and when I'm inspired, you got to get out of the way. Out, serious, you got to get out of the way. So I'm like, I just spent $80 buying pizza and wings for 2 families. I'm like, or $40 or $50, whatever it was probably $40, $50.
back
And
then.
I'm thinking, what? How can this be? And then I'm like, wait a second. Some people haven't gotten their food stamps because of these shutdowns, and they're on unemployment, and they haven't got their unemployment check yet.
Right.
Their job is shut down, so they can't make any money.
Gosh, that's tough.
I wanted to be the first last resort. There's food pantries, there's churches, there's all sorts of stuff. My wife and I, with the help of Key Lime Taxi, a local taxi company who did some shuttle service for us, we were able to buy groceries for 20 families in my county from that one inspired thought to post about pizza.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And Alan drove some of the shut-ins back and forth to the grocery store. At the time, my wife and I lived less than a mile from Food Lion grocery store. So someone would want to take me up on it. I would say, no problem. What I want you to do is go spend about $75 to $80 for groceries, which was $150 worth of groceries today.
Well, that's so ridiculous.
So you go ahead and get $75, $80 worth of groceries. I didn't really cap them. Some people went over. I didn't care. Text me when you're getting in line, and I'll come up and I'll swipe my card and pay for your food. It worked like a charm. And then I started getting local people from the towns. This one lady messaged me. She's like, come up to PNC. I'm going to give you some cash. I went up to PNC. She gave me two $100 bills. Lori Tanner, some other people in town, they all stepped up. And so out of pocket, it was about $500, but we all together, I think, collected like over $2,000 and bought 20 families food. And
it was awesome.
That felt amazing. And so the reason I share that about divine purpose, you inspire people and you don't realize it. And so I would love, if you ever wanted to do it, I think you'd be a phenomenal speaker and podcaster, because you're one of the most brilliant people I've ever met. And
thank you, Tom.
I don't know if anyone thinks it's a big deal, but I do, because I've met a lot of smart people. I really have.
Thank you, Tom. It's very kind.
Like I said, in the interest of timing, I told you want to kind of keep it there. Is there any last parting comments or philosophies, or maybe
I want to move to confession.
Sure.
Because there was one time someone gave me money to give to someone else for charity when I was younger, and I kept it. I kept it, Tom. I kept it for myself. And I never told anyone that until just the second.
Well,
and it was such a dark thing, because I had been in this selfish pattern of me. And I had a heart attack not too much longer after that. You know what I mean? And so after I had that heart attack, it was only $200, but still, like, that's even worse, and I justified it. I was like, well, I'm going to keep it because I need it. And I was just on this me, whatever it takes to be successful, ruthless, sociopathic, I had just shifted into that. Right. And I had this heart attack, and it was like God was getting my attention, and I could feel that I was going to die any second. Like, my heart rate was so high, and it was awful. I mean, I was like, this is it. I'm blacking out, and this is it. And I said, God, if you let me live through this, I will never tell another lie again. I will be kind to those who can do nothing for me, and I will spend more time with my children. And I have kept those promises because God will not be mocked. And I can't tell you the things that I have lost by always telling the truth. I've lost a lot. I've lost a lot of things I'd rather keep. But conversely, I got things that I never even imagined for myself. So the only reason why I'm telling that story, that very embarrassing story, is because no matter how far down the scale you've gone of character in terms of being a bad person or a good person, all we have to do is the next right thing for the next right reason. And hopefully it doesn't take a heart attack to get, God was getting my attention. He was saying, my sweet little girl, what are you doing? When did you become so dark? And it was honestly whenever I had first came to a certain amount of power that I had let that go to my head, and that I felt entitled to everything, affairs and just, like, well, that's my right because, I've achieved this, and this, so I should be able to do whatever I want.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's so not who I am today. So you met me after that time in my life, but the people who knew me during that time, rightfully, they're still not a big fan. I will probably never be able to redeem myself in the eyes of the people who knew me during that time. And
Well,
that's okay.
and yeah, because I was talking to on the previous episode with Jim McLean, my friend who's in Virginia, and he talks about a lot of how we show up in the lives of other people, and integrity, being impeccable with your word is one of the 4 agreements. And I've overpromised and underdelivered a number of times in my life. And so now what I do is I have less experiences and I do less things so I can be more impeccable with the things I do.
Makes perfect sense.
And so before we go here, tell me why someone would love to do business with you, except that besides the fact that you're amazing.
Well, I am a perfectionist, so I want to make sure that you get the utmost results. And so I'm not someone who's okay with just mediocre, or that's fine. They're getting this minimal result or this mediocre result. I want to make sure that you're the best, you get the best results, because then that makes me the best and we're both the best together. We win together. I want to win. I graduated in the top 5% of my class as a first generation college student because I am obsessed with getting these results, right? I want results. I want high leverage. And so if you take your business as seriously as I take my business, we're going to be a good match. I work 6 days a week from about 10 a.m. until about 10 p.m. most of the time because I'm in this grind season after traveling so much last year. And so if someone is in that same space where they're truly ready for actual results, to build your rental portfolio, to find deals to wholesale, find deals to keep as a landlord, you're going to need someone to help you scale and find those deals most of the time, unless you're very networked and you're getting a ton of referrals. But at some point you may want to finance with debt. And so that's why people would want to work with me, because I am not going to give up until we achieve the result that they're looking for. If they never give up on me, I will never give up on them.
So you're a closer.
Yeah, if I'm nothing else, I am a closer.
And coffees for closers. If you ever get a chance, there's a movie called Glengarry Glen Ross. I definitely want you to check it out.
Yeah.
There's a line in there and it says coffees for closers.
That's exactly right. No, ABC, always be closing, and
yes.
ABM, always be marketing so that you can ABC, always be closing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I am super, super excited and so glad that you took this time with me. I'd like to do it again this year if you're open to it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Everyone that's listening, I'm going to put all of Jennifer's contacts information in here. So if you're in the real estate space, commercial, residential, ideally commercial, she can help you with either commercial or residential with her call center, with funding. And I'd just like to thank the cold calling queen for spending this special time with me.
You're very kind. You're very generous.
And I hope you have a great weekend. And I look forward to talking to you soon. Anything else? Any one last thing you want to share before we go?
Yeah. Feel free to email me at jen@reidatasource.net. I also do data and skip tracing as well so that we can help people find those deals. So jen@reidatasource.net, specialize in finding and funding deals.
Okay, and that information will also be in this description. Please like this channel and share it. It really helps us grow our audience. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you so much, Tom. Thank you for this. It was great.
Thank you.